Gildan Media presents Your Coach in a Box. Affordable, mind-enriching programs.
Gildan Media presents an unabridged recording of The Regenerative Business. Redesign work, cultivate human potential, and achieve extraordinary outcomes. By Sanford. Narrated by Saltus. Introduction. Pursue disruptive innovation. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Max Planck, quantum theorist and Nobel laureate. These days, the idea of disruptive innovation is a hot topic among business leaders of every stripe. Many are coming to believe that disruption is core to their longevity and market position in a fast-changing world. Customers expect the companies they buy from to be on top of what's evolving in their environments and to help them address the emerging challenges and aspirations that they are discovering. Many companies complain that customers are fickle, but actually they are engaged in a process of ongoing change, just like the world around them. A well-developed capacity for innovation is the way that modern companies get out ahead of continual change. When it's done well, disruptive innovation has the power to regenerate whole industries and markets. Beyond this, it also has the potential to regenerate the social and ecological systems within which an industry operates. This kind of innovation requires what I call enlightened disruption, and it takes courage. It calls for leadership that lives on the edge and is willing to introduce changes that reinvent the game for all of the businesses within an industry. Unfortunately, most businesses work on innovation in entirely wrong-headed ways. In general, they focus exclusively on innovating their product offerings. Instead of designing new ways to work that lead naturally to great products, they seek out how-to templates offered by so-called experts. This severely limits the scope and significance of potential innovation, and it leaves companies dependent on outside expertise as the templates they adopt become outdated. From my perspective, the potential for disruptive innovation exists in every aspect of a business, not just in its offerings. It is possible and important to innovate with regard to management, production, distribution, customer relations, marketing, supply system, investment, and at least 100 other arenas. Foundational to all of these is innovation with regard to how organizations develop their people. Human development builds a company's capacity to generate the thinking that will evolve its operations, industry, society, and world. Designing work systems to grow this capability in every member of the organization is essential. This, I believe, is the only way to create a business that consistently produces enlightened, disruptive innovation in a fast-changing world. Regeneration is a process by which people, institutions, and materials evolve the capacity to fulfill their inherent potential in a world that is constantly changing around them. This can only be accomplished by going back to their roots, their origins, or their foundings to discover what is truly singular or essential about them. Bringing this essential core forward in order to express it as new capacity and relevance is another way to describe the activity of regeneration. In other words, regeneration is the means by which enlightened, disruptive innovation happens. Disruption takes know-how, which has to be grown into an organization. That is why this audiobook focuses on work design. More specifically, it focuses on work design that intentionally develops people's capacities and capabilities. A regenerative business grows its members, every single one of them, into innovators with a shared commitment to bring forward radically disruptive ideas. It also grows the capability of its members to think like CEOs, with clear enough understanding of markets and strategy to ensure that every new idea is not only compelling in its own right, but also has the power to advance the company as a whole. When these complementary conditions are present, a business becomes a pipeline for innovation. This is the way to create a powerhouse, an organization that is fast, flexible, resilient, and unique enough to keep pace with the 21st century. The regenerative mindset. At this point, you may be wondering, well, it sounds good, but why isn't everybody already doing it? In practice, there are some real and not so obvious challenges built into creating regenerative organizations. The single greatest barrier to innovation is our unconscious attachment to comfortable and habitual patterns of thought. That is, to our mindsets. These mechanical habits are precisely why we find ourselves stuck with borrowed ideas, unable to generate anything profoundly creative and new. How then do we learn to cultivate the unique qualities of thinking that are required for a regenerative innovation process? How do we become masters of innovative thinking so that we are able to innovate the process itself? In my experience, we must each start by becoming aware of our mindsets and the effects they have on how we think and what we think about. By working to make ourselves conscious of these effects, we can develop the ability to choose and evolve our mindsets, which will enable us to proactively create the thinking that we will need for regenerative business practice. A mindset is the lens through which we view and make sense of the world. It determines what we can see, how we can make sense of what we see, and how we act. For example, if we envision the world as a machine, then it becomes very easy to see humans and other living systems as interchangeable cogs. In fact, this particular mindset has shaped many of the ways businesses, sciences, and governments have been organized for at least 2 centuries. One of the subtle hazards associated with mindsets is that they can be the source of a host of problems. For example, one of the reasons people hang on to the machine mindset is that it has enabled us to build efficient systems for the creation and distribution of products. However, it has also generated dehumanized workplaces, damaged ecosystems, and loss of local cultures around the world. To paraphrase Albert Einstein, these problems cannot be solved with the same mechanical mindset that created them. In business, the regenerative mindset is actually quite rare. Yet the capacity for disruptive innovation depends on the ability to see the world through precisely this lens. To create and continue to evolve a world-changing business, the regenerative mindset must be intentionally built in, not unconsciously designed out. Consolidated diesel. Again, it's essential to note that there is more to the idea of enlightened disruption than just bringing breakthrough products to market. A regenerative organization also shakes up the status quo in ways that make it possible to build new social systems, new capabilities for critical thinking and engagement, and new energy for democratic institutions. I know from experience that all of this can be accomplished through the skillful practice of work design. Let me describe for you a startup that I worked on in the early 1980s, where I learned firsthand the power of regenerative business. Consolidated Diesel Company, a joint venture between Cummins Engine and J.I. Case, was formed to build small engines for an array of consumer and industrial applications. When the startup team received the charter to create a new, state-of-the-art manufacturing business, they quickly realized that it would also need to be a state-of-the-art operation with regard to how it worked with people. I was part of the team of consultants that helped them determine how to step up to these challenges. We began by developing an inspiring direction, to usher in a new era of engines that were of such high quality that the most demanding customers in the world, at that time Japanese manufacturers, would insist on using them in their own products. To achieve this, we committed to connecting every employee as directly as possible to the customers. "The customer's dream guides every decision we make," became our motto. Within a year and a half of its launch, Consolidated Diesel had distinguished itself as the world's leading manufacturer of small engines. Japanese manufacturers quickly recognized and took advantage of the superiority of its products, and they were followed soon after by manufacturers in the West. In particular, companies in the United States were drawn by the fact that Japanese imports were entering the country with American engines in them. Beginning with motorcycle engines, Consolidated Diesel quickly branched out to make products for almost any function that required a small engine. Everything from lawnmowers to farm equipment. The company's workers were completely self-managing. We never could come up with a good reason to have supervisors. Instead, on-site experts with deep experience in manufacturing provided the operator teams with the information and education they needed to act in ways that would evolve the capacity of their customers. Every member of the organization became an active co-creator of every aspect of management, from strategy to hiring to pay system to customer service. This non-hierarchical structure was backed up with a strong culture. Every employee was expected to develop a profound understanding of what would strategically increase customer successes. Based on this, they were encouraged to take on critical responsibilities and challenges beyond their own current capability and then grow into them. This created a cohesive spirit as everyone pulled together to achieve something that would truly benefit the users of their products. What made this success even more extraordinary was that the business was located in rural North Carolina, a society deeply divided by racism. One of the startup design team's explicit objectives was to adopt new business practices that would dismantle racism within Consolidated Diesel, its parent companies, and its suppliers. The team identified 5 key areas, including hiring and promotion, where discrimination usually occurred. And then they established principles and practices that would disrupt the subjective, often unconscious biases that went into decision-making. They also placed strong emphasis on transparency so that it was possible to challenge any decision that might be interpreted as discriminatory. This emphasis on transparency was carried into the design of the facility, which used glass walls to define private work or meeting areas. The results were immediate and profound, and they soon spread beyond the company. Employees developed a training program for Consolidated Diesel suppliers that was based on their own growing expertise. It successfully broke down deeply ingrained patterns of discrimination. Consolidated Diesel's accomplishments turned out to be enduring. 20 years after the startup, I read a cover article in Fast Company magazine that touted the revolutionary nature of the company's work design. I still see the work we did together cited from time to time in books and magazines. As my first massive work design effort, Consolidated Diesel represented a steep learning curve for me. Now, more than 3 decades and 100 organizational designs later, I've been able to deepen and significantly evolve my understanding of what it takes to create regenerative businesses. Throughout this audiobook, I will share my discoveries about the business practices that are fundamental to becoming regenerative in how we work. They represent my best effort to understand what makes people whole, creative, and capable of making valuable contributions to successful businesses. Insofar as these discoveries are universal, they are also true about me and about you, the listener. Consequently, the work of growing great companies turns out to be, as well, the work of growing ourselves. I invite you to join me in this process of discovery. Who is this audiobook for? Most people spend 60% of their waking lives at work, which is the cornerstone of our society and our economy. Consequently, we ought to have work that works well. This audiobook is written for people who want to design new and better ways of working, ways that address the preponderance of dissatisfaction that most people experience with their work. When I use the term design, I refer to the act of intentionally generating something new, something that responds creatively to the specific needs and opportunities of a business, its customers, and its employees. I do not mean implementing yet another off-the-shelf, currently popular program of the week. For this reason, I focus on the overarching principles and criteria that designers need to hold consciously in mind, whether they are setting up brand new companies or redesigning venerable institutions with many generations of success under their belts. My emphasis on principles and criteria, rather than prescriptive recipes, is deliberate. My aim is to grow a higher level of discernment and creative thinking into the practice of work design, and offering another audiobook that simply tells people what to do would undermine this intention. My hope is that listeners will find this audiobook stimulating and challenging, a pointer to the path we need to take if we are to harmonize the needs of businesses with those of their markets and of society as a whole. This is an audiobook for people who love the ability of businesses to foster innovation and creativity by unleashing the inherent intelligence of everyone involved. Unfortunately, business education and corporate cultures continually reinforce the idea that supporting the people in an organization comes at the expense of profitability. But with a number of pioneering business leaders, I've been able to demonstrate again and again that the opposite is true. Not only can leaders tap into the intelligence of their people as a way to grow powerfully profitable businesses, but also they can grow this intelligence to make their businesses disruptive and therefore non-displaceable and future-proof in their chosen markets. Are you a pioneering business leader? A decision maker who is responsible for setting direction in your organization or for designing and implementing the way people work? Then I want this audiobook to help you build financial success while blowing the roof off the creative potential of your team. Overview. This audiobook is divided into 3 sections. Part 1 provides an orientation to regenerative work design, what it is, why it matters, and how it addresses the business challenges of the 21st century. It describes the core characteristics of a regenerative approach and the paradigm shift this approach represents with regard to human development and disruptive innovation. Part 2 provides the basis for assessing your business and its work design. What are its practices? Where did they come from? And what are the hidden consequences of using them? For anyone who wants to create a regenerative business organization, this assessment is critical. A regenerative approach is not something that you just add on to everything you're already doing. It requires a radical re-envisioning of what business is and how it works. Thus, the first step to evolving your business is to create a plan for cleaning house, eliminating and replacing old practices that no longer serve you. An obvious example might be replacing performance reviews and incentive programs, which are increasingly recognized as toxic practices, without bringing in something equally destructive. Part 3 lays out 5 necessary phases that your business will move through as it grows into a regenerative organization. It provides tested concepts and guidance for creating a work design that enables you to attract and keep great people, generate extraordinary financial returns, and contribute to a better society. Rather than promoting a one-size-fits-all approach, it offers a framework for stimulating your own creativity with regard to the unique conditions of your business, so that the work design you generate will be yours and yours alone. Free download. Supplemental materials to help start your business's regenerative work design are available at www.carolsanford.com/book-downloads. Chapter 1. Go beyond training and develop your people. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Creativity and innovation are inherent in human beings. When people have a place to express these qualities in useful ways, they provide the necessary energy for successful businesses and enduring societies. Regenerative businesses tap into creativity and innovation, fostering them, developing them, and harnessing them to improve life for customers and workers. These businesses inspire employees to use their initiative to create systemic effects that ripple out and improve communities, landscapes, and nations. This becomes possible when businesses change their frames of reference, refocusing their people on understanding the customer's world so that they can discover unique ways to transform it. It is this focus on transformative effects for customers that enables regenerative businesses to disrupt their industries and markets. At the same time, businesses that foster initiative and self-management change forever the way employees look at the world and their role within it. When people spend their lives in hierarchical systems, with supervisors making decisions for them, their decision-making capacity and their confidence in their own judgment weaken. They become habituated to ceding control and responsibility to authority figures. In the long run, this undermines not only our businesses, but our democracy and the citizenry needed to make it work. By evolving the natural sources of human creativity and responsibility, a regenerative business builds more than itself. It grows better citizens, and as a result, it builds a better nation and a better world. The process of developing people must be built into the design of a business and how it works. It is not something that gets bolted on, along with other management practices that have accumulated over the years. Rather, it is fundamental, a necessary part of what it takes to grow a successful, holistic, highly intelligent organization. Developing people in a changing world. The way most companies manage their workforces is bad for business. Not coincidentally, it's also bad for people and for democracy, reinforcing inequity and alienation from social and democratic processes. This is because it draws on outmoded and inaccurate beliefs about human nature and what it takes to create healthy patterns of social engagement. For example, most managers believe that humans need to be stimulated with incentives, rewards, and recognition if they are to become motivated. Such beliefs contradict a growing body of scientific research that points to the direct connection between human agency and personal and collective motivation. In other words, most businesses are designed to severely limit people's ability to stay motivated. Clearly, there is plenty of room for innovation. A host of new discoveries in the fields of neuroscience and psychology have overturned long-held assumptions about human motivation and development, suggesting that we have far more capacity for free will and autonomy than has been generally assumed. Multiple studies demonstrate that we have a stronger tendency to feel rewarded by altruism than by selfishness. We have the ability to work independently, outside the influence of our peers, if we have the opportunity to develop this capacity. With adequate support, we can learn to manage increasingly difficult and complex situations over our entire lifetime. These insights directly contradict many of the core beliefs that have shaped the design and management of businesses for more than 100 years. The need to rethink these outmoded beliefs and replace the toxic management practices and work systems that have developed from them is becoming urgent. Automation and artificial intelligence are expected to displace 50% of what's left of blue-collar jobs in the U.S. by the end of this decade, part of a global phenomenon that is rapidly replacing industrial labor with machines. At the same time, there is a global shortage of workers with the critical thinking skills, technical agility, motivation, and independence needed by the emerging economy. Elon Musk, in a joint presentation with Bill Gates at the 2017 Davos World Economic Forum, pointed out that these qualities can and should be developed rapidly within the workplace, and that it is in each business interest to do so. What is urgently needed now is an approach to work design that educates workers to be successful in the 21st century. Not surprisingly, many members of the millennial generation are directly challenging traditional modes of doing business, which increasingly strike them as innately wrong-headed. Because of the open and transparent nature of the Internet, they have grown up with a voice and the ability to question almost anything. They don't assume that their elders know more than they do, and this is creating tensions and chaos within old-style hierarchical organizations. Also, the U.S. is experiencing a profound demographic shift as it moves from several hundred years of white majority to a pluralistic society in which people of color make up the majority. This means that a large percentage of the workforce is growing up in cultural milieus that differ from what has been the white mainstream. As communities of color become more central to the future of businesses, they expect their values to be reflected in the workplace. These phenomena are part of a larger social shift toward increasing dissatisfaction with top-down decision-making. Across the political spectrum, people are insisting on their own autonomy and resisting the imposition of governmental or corporate institutions. The Tea Party, Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter, and the homeschooling movements are all manifestations of a revolutionary impulse that harkens back to the founding of the U.S., when the colonies shook off the dominance of a British ruling class. This impulse is creating enormous stresses in both government and business, and organizations of all sorts are scrambling to respond. However, most of the currently available solutions that are focused on creating greater autonomy and less bureaucracy fail to address one essential underlying problem. Our social institutions have fostered an impulse toward greater freedom, but have failed to equip citizens with the corresponding critical thinking capabilities to use that freedom effectively. The good news here is that this failure represents an unprecedented opportunity for businesses. If they can develop these capabilities in their workforces, they will strengthen not only themselves, but also democracy as a whole. Traditional ways of running a business and managing its people act against the development, full expression, and contribution of human beings. As a rule, they are grounded in a belief that human potential is fixed at birth, an accident of genetic or socioeconomic background. People must therefore be slotted into appropriate positions within hierarchical systems, and those who are smarter must naturally make decisions for everyone else. Recognizing that there is room for innovation, a number of businesses and the consultants who serve them have worked hard to create flat organizations with self-directed employees. But unfortunately, many of these alternative structures are still based on the old belief about motivation, namely that it is fostered through a system of rewards and punishments. Also, many of them focus on the development of technical skills rather than on the deep work of growing critical thinking, personal mastery, and business acumen. In fact, everyone has an inherent capacity not only to develop new skills, but also to become smarter and more capable of taking on larger and larger challenges. Businesses are in an exceptionally leveraged position to develop this capacity because it is in their best interest to do so. Specifically, businesses should strive to provide people with increasingly significant challenges that they can use to grow themselves, along with an unswerving commitment to help them develop the requisite critical thinking skills and ability to manage themselves. The technology for developing people in this way has been around for more than 50 years. The result of a lifelong collaboration between my mentors, James V. Clark and Charles G. Crone. Crone was a philosopher with a degree in chemical engineering, while Clark was a Harvard-trained specialist in educational psychology. Their pioneering work at Procter & Gamble in the 1960s helped introduce the world to the practice of regenerative business design. Their work and the work of their students and colleagues has demonstrated time and again that the development of people is a powerfully effective way to build successful businesses and healthy communities. Yet, although regenerative business design is powerful and proven, it has not been widely understood or adopted. This is because it requires the deep examination of a business's starting premises and what it is willing to undertake. It also requires embracing the internal destabilization and discomfort that come with responding creatively to the unknown. The payoff is a motivated and innovative workforce that is prepared to take a company to the top of its industry. By tapping into the inherent, self-organizing, creative energies of your workforce, you will improve margins, cash flow, and earnings. As an added bonus, you will contribute to making better lives for the people your business affects and more enduring democratic institutions for society as a whole. Building the capacity for disruptive thinking.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?